Okay, so I'm going to be doing a video on FSR versus DLSS in FORZA Ryzen 5 with the RTX 3050. And we're going to be starting off with 1080p on the extreme preset. So let's go jump into the settings real quick. Playing the game at 1080p, and for the preset using the extreme right here. And for ray tracing, I'm going to keep it off for this video since the game starts lagging and stuttering very badly when I had it enabled on this card. So starting it off at native 1080p, we're sitting in between the mid-20s to the low 30s. It's not the best experience. The game is stuttering quite a bit without ray tracing already, so as you would expect, once you enable ray tracing, it gets far worse. And this area again is not too difficult to run. We're just outside the city. The cities are definitely far more intensive, and as you can see, once we are driving up into the city, we're dropping down into the low 20s, and the game is lagging like crazy. So I want to see if DLSS makes any difference. It should, obviously, and I want to check the quality out versus FSR. When I did the video on the Steam Deck with this game with FSR 2.2, the game really didn't receive much of an improvement. We just lost the quality. So I want to see if it's actually just bugged or if it's just related to the Steam Deck. Alright, now using the quality DLSS, let's go ahead and jump back out. And the game does look slightly more blurry, I gotta say. Already at 1080p, DLSS isn't really doing a good job. The car looks alright. Power lines definitely look, whoa, it's ghosting. Power lines are ghosting. I'm not surprised really. DLSS works best at 450 and 4K, but mainly 4K. In some games it still does look very good at 1080p, but FORZA Ryzen 5 is not one of them. And looking at the performance, we're still sitting in the mid-20s to low 30s. In fact, it feels like it's running worse than what it was at native, surprisingly. So really, we're not getting too much of an improvement, or any at all, at quality DLSS. Yeah, the game is running far worse, it seems like. So I'd probably avoid using quality DLSS. The game isn't stuttering as bad with FSR. It's definitely, I guess, more smoother, even though it is still pretty laggy. And FPS is still not improved. We're sitting in the mid to low 20s and spiking up into the low 30s. Yeah. The game is not doing too well right now. Okay, this is pretty bad. Let's go ahead and turn back around. Alright, I'm sitting here and I'm using Ultra Performance DLSS right now. I want to see the comparison between playing a native versus using DLSS. And FPS wise, it's not too different at all, even though I'm using the highest preset for the most FPS. So yeah, I don't know. I think they've broken the game. DLSS and FSR both really don't do anything. The quality does degrade, so it is, I guess, working, but we're not really gaining much or any FPS from it at all. And I think the smart thing to do is just to lower your quality settings. But I'm still going to continue with this. We're just going to ignore the FPS since it doesn't really do anything. And I'm going to be focusing on the quality more than the performance right here. So even though the performance with DLSS and FSR is bugged, we can still take a look and see which one provides the better looking image. And at 1080p, it looks like it's DLSS. But in saying that, at the quality preset, we're still getting some downgrades compared to running the game at native. A few things I noticed while playing were the power lines. Anything that's thin looks kind of off with DLSS or FSR, and you get a bit of blurriness as well between the two. DLSS looks a bit sharper compared to FSR, but at 1080p I'd rather go with native than to use FSR or DLSS. And as you go down the line to balance performance and ultra performance, you'll see the gap widen between DLSS and FSR. The quality falls off around balance mode for FSR, and for DLSS falls off around performance, and you'll see some trailing and some ghosting around performance and ultra performance with DLSS. Now they both do a good job up close. They render the car properly and looks very sharp, but the main issue with both of them is that cars in the distance or objects in the distance show up as blurry and they look very low res. So once the performance gets fixed and you must use DLSS or FSR, I will stick to balance or quality for DLSS, and for FSR I wouldn't go below quality. Okay, I'm gonna let this play out and I'll come back once we move up to 440p. Now at 1440p, the story's a bit different. I prefer the FSR look at quality. They both look pretty good, but FSR just looked a little bit closer to native. Now the image quality wasn't perfect with FSR or DLSS. I could still tell that we weren't running anything about native, but FSR was the closest to native than DLSS. Now moving on to balance quality, I think they both look pretty similar at this point. I personally would just stick to quality at 1440p. At balance, performance, and ultra performance, you'll see the cars in front of you start to blur, and so you'll see some issues with the quality of the game itself. I'm gonna have some zoom sections in each preset as well. I'm sure you guys already seen that at 1080p, so you can see it much easier. And again, the majority of the issues are from objects in the distance. Up close, it looks perfect, looks just like native with either of them. Okay, I'm gonna let this play out, and I'll come back once we hit 4K. And finally at 4K, they both look great, but the DLSS look identical to native. I couldn't tell the difference when using the quality and balance modes, while at the performance and ultra performance modes, you start seeing some blurring and ghosting occasionally, and at this point it's much better to play at 1440p native than use DLSS at 4K. And for FSR, it also looked good with the quality and balance modes, but I could still see some flaws, especially around the wheels and lights of the cars, but overall it looked great. And again, the performance and ultra performance modes look pretty awful with FSR, far worse than DLSS, but regardless I would avoid DLSS and FSR when going below balanced. Alright, that's it for the video guys. If you made this far, appreciate you. And as always, if you like what you see, then a like and a sub to the channel would be appreciated as well. See you next time.